Reorganizing the Austin Police Department.
Can we really afford to have fewer cops than we had 5 years ago?
Tonight, the three major changes Austin City Council is proposing.
And I'm tracking a cold front headed our way, plus storm chances and the latest on Tropical Storm Isaias.
The FBI issuing a warning to UT.
These campaigns to take information occur on a regular basis.
What we know about an investigation into China allegedly spying on researchers. CBS Austin News at 10 starts now.
I'm calling today with Austin DSA to demand the Austin City Council approve a budget that defunds the police department by 50%.
Dismantle APD and fund real solutions.
Defunding APD. Defunding APD.
Defunding APD.
In a nearly unified demand, hundreds spoke tonight urging City Council to reimagine the Austin Police Department. 591 callers signed up to speak at the budget meeting, now passing its 12th hour tonight. Calls for reallocating millions of dollars from APD come days after the deadly shooting of a Black Lives Matter protester. Those demonstrations were sparked by the Minnesota police custody death of George Floyd and amplified by the Austin police shooting of Mike Ramos. After months of protests, Austin City Council members revealed their first proposals for reimagined public safety. CBS Austin's Gabriela Vidal joins us live to break down what those proposals are. Gabby?
Well, Hema, tonight, many of those public speakers during multiple portions of the public comment section at tonight's meeting want the city of Austin to cut more than 50% of the Austin Police Department's budget and reallocate that to other city services and programs. But there are still some community groups in Austin who are worried about potential cuts.
One after another.
Please choose to fund the community and not policing. It is your choice to decide the legacy that you leave in the city.
Austinites asked City Council to remove more than $200 million from the Austin Police Department's budget.
The majority of our city's budget should be going to homelessness and housing services, to public health initiatives, and to EMS services.
Council members Leslie Poole, Greg Kassar, and Jimmy Flanagan have each proposed measures to reduce the police budget in key areas. Poole's proposal includes closing the Cadet Academy for a year, eliminating current cadets this year, and removing unfilled positions. Altogether would free up nearly $40 million.
We're using the budget process to make drastic public safety changes without knowing the consequences.
Carrie Roberts with the Greater Austin Crime Commission says most Austin voters oppose reducing police officer positions.
Can we really afford to have, fewer cops than we had 5 years ago?
Both Kassar and Poole's proposals call for moving the forensic lab and internal affairs away from the police department.
We need a separate set of attorneys with the authority to go before the grand jury. We need a separate set of investigators who are not investigating the people they're working with.
Councilmember Flanagan calls for reconstructing APD into distinct departments and moving APD officers out of their existing headquarters.
The land that building is sitting on, is very valuable and could be put probably to a better use.
Now, the next budget work session is set for August 4th. There will be public comment opportunity during the August 12th meeting where the adoption process for the budget will begin. Reporting live, Gabrielle Vidal, CBS Austin News.
Protesters who say they saw Saturday's deadly shooting downtown were among those demanding council defund police.
APD did not prevent the crime from happening, nor did they arrest the murderer who turned himself in. At the press briefing, APD reported the shooter's account as fact and created a false narrative that was shared internationally. I'm traumatized and exhausted.
Garrett Foster died after police say a car turned onto Congress Avenue, which was filled with Black Lives Matter protesters. Shortly after gunfire broke out, the driver of that car called 911, claiming they shot someone in the crowd who pointed a rifle at them. Austin police are now working to debunk rumors about that shooting. While putting out a call for more witness video, today they urged people online to stop spreading false information. Police say tonight that despite rumors, no one connected to this case works in law enforcement. After quietly reinvestigating the case in a dramatic decision today, St. Louis's top prosecutor says he will not charge the former officer involved in Michael Brown's death. Brown's mother urged the county's first black prosecutor to reopen the case. Wesley Bell called today's announcement one of his most difficult decisions. While saying the investigation does not exonerate Darren Wilson, they could not prove beyond reasonable doubt Wilson committed murder or manslaughter. During an emotional funeral for civil rights icon John Lewis today, former presidents urged Americans to keep fighting against injustice.
When we do form a more perfect union, whether it's years from now or decades, or even if it takes another 2 centuries, John Lewis will be a founding father of that fuller, fairer, better America.
Former Presidents Obama, Bush, and Clinton eulogized the congressman. His funeral took place as protests against racial inequality spreads nationwide. Lewis was the last survivor of the Big Six civil rights activists led by Martin Luther King Jr.
The report card really validated that this was indeed the worst quarter in U.S. economic history.
Exactly 6 months after the World Health Organization declared a public health emergency, new reports reveal COVID-19's devastating economic effects. The Commerce Department now says the nation's economy contracted at its worst rate in 70 years. It comes as new University of Washington models predict the U.S. death toll will reach 231,000 by November, an 11,000 increase in 1 week. Texas has now surpassed New York State in total coronavirus cases. The state added 8,800 new positives today. Now with a total over 425,000, Texas is heading past New York, which had just 414,000 total cases. It comes amid a quickly rising death toll, with 322 deaths in Texas announced today. In the hard-hit Rio Grande Valley, about 600 people have died so far, the majority this month.
It's like living in a constant hurricane of patients coming into the hospital. It's overwhelming. It's endless and overwhelming.
Medical teams say they're now struggling to stay ahead of the quickly spreading virus. Here in Austin, Travis County, dwindling new hospital admissions are putting the area back into the yellow zone for the first time in more than a month. But Austin Public Health says they are not ready to trigger a move back to stage 3. Despite fewer admissions, they say ICUs still have little room available. Wednesday, area hospitals announced Central Texas ICUs are still more than 80% full. Flaring up opposition on both sides of the aisle, President Trump today raised the possibility of putting off the November elections. As Ben Tracy reports, only Congress has that power.
President Trump's stunning suggestion that the election be delayed comes as he's trailing badly in the polls, and at the same time the nation's GDP reached a historic low. In a remarkable tweet, he made the unfounded claim that mail-in voting will make the election the most inaccurate and fraudulent in history, and suggested a delay until people can properly, securely, and safely vote.
I don't want to delay. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything.
The president has no power to delay an election. The Constitution says only Congress can change the date, and mail-in voter fraud, repeatedly cited by Mr. Trump, is extremely rare. Today, the top Republicans in Congress rebuked the idea.
We'll cope with whatever the situation is and have the election on November 3rd as already scheduled.
Never in the history of the federal elections have we ever not held an election, and we should go forward with our election.
In April, former Vice President Joe Biden predicted the president would try to move the election. The president's tweet came as John Lewis, a man who spent his life fighting for voting rights, was laid to rest. Democratic Representative James Clyburn, a longtime friend, called the president's suggestion of a delayed election the most despicable affront to Lewis's memory and legacy.
And that was Ben Tracy reporting. Texas Republicans are among those pushing back against Trump today. Senator Ted Cruz told CNN, while fraud is a problem, it shouldn't delay the election. Senator John Cornyn suggested Trump was joking. Previously postponed to next year, tonight the Texas Attorney General says Round Rock polls must open in November. Earlier this month, City Council voted to delay local elections for a second time until May 2021 over COVID-19 concerns. New guidance from Ken Paxton today calls that move illegal. He says the governor's orders earlier this year do not allow cities to move their elections for a second time. Meeting with the family of murdered Fort Hood soldier Vanessa Guillen today, President Trump promised an investigation.
How can this happen on a military base where you think everything's safe, but yet the soldiers are not safe? So we need a congressional investigation because it's impossible that no one saw, no one heard anything.
Talking to supporters on Capitol Hill after that meeting, family members introduced the I Am Vanessa Guillen bill. It would allow service members to file sexual harassment claims to a third party instead of their chain of command. Investigators believe fellow Fort Hood soldier Aaron Robinson killed the 20-year-old on post.
Now your Storm Tracker weather.
20 in 2020. That's how many times we've been to the triple-digit mark, and we're just getting started. There will be more to come. At the same time, though, I'm actually tracking a front, albeit a weak one, to our north. Outside tonight, it's 87 degrees after that high today of 101. You can see that there's a front that has sparked off some severe storms, especially into southeastern Oklahoma, and now there's still a severe thunderstorm watch into portions of southwest Oklahoma. The Arklatex getting pretty nasty storms, especially with some high wind gusts. For us, when the front moves in, likely tomorrow afternoon to evening, not a widespread outbreak, but we could see some isolated showers and storms turn strong to severe. So just keep in mind, hail and high winds are certainly possibilities. Meantime, Tropical Storm Isaias, the latest advisory as the storm has now emerged north of the Dominican Republic and heads towards the Bahamas. 60-mile-per-hour winds, gusts up to 70, continuing to make a push toward the U.S. I'll let you know what the rest of the track is and when landfalls could be coming up.
NASA blasts off to the Red Planet. The mission's goal called a first for space exploration. Worries China is spying on the 40 acres.
There may be aspects that the University of Texas is looking at that could benefit or accelerate some of the Chinese directions.
The research the FBI thinks China is targeting. An urgent search in Williamson County tonight as the fourth day nears with no sign of a missing man. Deputies say Mark Yarbrough was last seen Monday morning. They believe he disappeared while going to visit friends in Granger. Search crews found Yarbrough's truck nearby with his keys and wallet inside. Deputies now believe the 63-year-old is in danger. Anyone with information is asked to call the sheriff's office. One day after Travis County's first probable case of West Nile, tonight more pools are coming back positive with the virus. Last week, city crews found West Nile in pools at 2 central Austin zip codes. Today, tests are coming back positive in 3 additional zip codes, stretching from downtown to near Miller and far north in the Wells Branch neighborhood. It comes after Travis County went all of 2019 with no positive pools or human cases. 1 year earlier, health officials found 8 positive pools and 4 human cases. Austin Public Health says just 20% of those infected show symptoms, most of them being mild. The FBI is now reportedly looking into an attempt by the Chinese government to spy on the University of Texas's COVID-19 research. It comes after U.S. claims of espionage targeting coronavirus information forced the Chinese consulate in Houston to close. CBS Austin's Jordan Bonke joins us from the 40 acres tonight with the notice UT's provost sent to their researchers. Jordan?
Yeah, the UT provost sent a letter to the researchers warning them that they could be contacted by the FBI because of the potential of Chinese spying on COVID research. As the University of Texas researchers continue to study COVID-19, the FBI is reportedly investigating an attempt by the Chinese government to spy on researchers at American universities, including UT Austin. In a letter sent to researchers, UT Provost Dan Jaffe warned that they may be contacted as part of an investigation about their role in coronavirus vaccine research.
It really isn't very uncommon for the Chinese government to be involved in spying on research in the United States or in other countries.
Robert Baker of Stratfor, a global intelligence firm, says the Chinese government could engage in espionage at universities through cyber attacks like hacking or phishing links by email. He says Chinese spies could be placing their own researchers in facilities or look to develop relationships with researchers to later exploit them for information.
China has quite a robust research going into COVID-19 and into vaccines for COVID-19 themselves. But there may be aspects of things that the U.S. is looking at or that the University of Texas is looking at that could benefit or accelerate some of the Chinese directions.
The U.S. State Department ordered the shutdown of the Chinese consulate in Houston last week to protect intellectual property. China did the same with the U.S. consulate in response. A senior State Department official said the Chinese government had engaged for years in illegal spying throughout the U.S., and these activities had recently increased in scale and scope.
These campaigns to spy, steal, borrow, take information occur on a regular basis.
Now, the FBI couldn't confirm or deny the investigation, but last Tuesday, the FBI did charge 2 Chinese hackers for targeting companies and labs around the world. We're live on the UT campus tonight. Jordan Bontke, CBS Austin News.
Now your Storm Tracker weather with Chief Meteorologist Chicago Wendler.
Tomorrow could actually turn into a fairly interesting day. We have a weak cold front. Don't get excited about temperatures at all, but that front could spur on some showers and storms, and there's actually a low chance some of them could be on the strong, possibly severe side. Tonight, though, everything is quiet after we saw triple digits yet again. Our high 101. Currently, it's 87 with a heat index of 91. So that front has already actually caused some wind gusts that have been severe throughout much of the evening, crossing the Red River and now pushing toward the Arklatex. In areas of southwest Arkansas, severe thunderstorm watch still in effect until 1 a.m. Now, while those storms will fizzle, we'll see more fire up tomorrow along and ahead of that cold front. Areas in that green, that is the lowest risk of severe weather. At this point, I'm thinking we may see 1 or 2 storms that have wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, maybe some hail up to quarter size, but for the most part, it's probably not going to be a big event in terms of severe weather potential. However, we need the rain, and we'll take every single drop. In the morning, 80 degrees. By midday, 93. Mainly dry first half of your day. Mid-afternoon toward late evening will probably be the timeline for storms from northwest to southeast through our area. I think we could hit 102 before the storms roll in. So taking you hour by hour, here's a look at midday. Still pretty quiet, a couple of stray showers developing. By around 2:30 or so, we could start to see a few pop-up isolated storms ahead of the front. By 4 o'clock, there you go, front rolling through. And basically the front itself will just be a line upon which storms may be favored, a wind shift as well. And then that front rolls south and pretty much dissipates, which means we're not going to see a big temperature contrast behind it. As far as rainfall totals, well, something's better than nothing. At this point, no guarantees we'll see a whole lot. Meantime, as we continue to track Tropical Storm Isaiah, it continues working its way toward the north and west, and all indications are that we could be dealing with potentially an East Coast landfalling hurricane by the time we reach this weekend or perhaps into early next week. So for now, it has just emerged away from the Dominican Republic, could brush close to the Turks and Caicos, across the Bahamas, heading toward the east coast of Florida, but perhaps not even making landfall, and then brushing extremely close to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. For us, we go from 102 tomorrow to 100. Not exactly a cool down.
NASA's most ambitious Mars mission yet, what the agency's Perseverance rover could find on the red planet. Tonight, NASA's Perseverance rover is on its way to Mars. The spacecraft carrying the rover and its own helicopter launched this morning from Cape Canaveral, Florida. It's set to reach Mars in February. Perseverance will be on a mission to search for signs of ancient microbial life and collect samples for a possible return to Earth.
Sean speaks. With his first playoff streak in jeopardy, we go one-on-one with Sean Elliott to find out what's most important for the Spurs in the bubble. Plus, while the Big 12 works on its plan, the SEC moves ahead. What's next for both leagues? CBS Austin Sports from the Blue Turf next.
This is the Thomas J. Henry Sports Desk.
LSU beat Texas in Austin last year and went on to win the national championship. The Longhorns will not get their chance to create the same trend in Baton Rouge this year. Texas-LSU, one of 4 Big 12 SEC matchups scheduled for this season that they will not play. Still not sure what the Big 12's plans are. Today, the league held an emergency meeting with nothing to come from it other than the cancellation of the league's media day on Monday. Commissioner Bob Bowlesby says there are more questions than answers about the football season right now. Ain't that the truth? We do know the Big 10, Pac-12, and SEC are all now sure of one thing. They will not play non-conference games this year. The SEC, the latest to fall in line on that front. A 10-game league-only schedule is now official. They will push back the season opener to September 26th. A&M and Arkansas are moving their game from Jerry World to Kyle Field. Dr. Mark Escott didn't love UT's idea of putting 50,000 people in the stands for a football game. He doesn't love their new idea of 25,000 either. Quote, "Let's stick to watching football on TV this fall." Well, we finally get to watch the NBA again. The league opened play tonight with 2 games in the bubble in Orlando. Tomorrow night, the Spurs restart their season sitting 12th in the West, in danger of missing the playoffs for the first time in 23 years. Spurs broadcaster and legendary guard Sean Elliott from our sister network Fox Sports Southwest explains why the development of this team is just as important as that playoff streak.
I felt even mid-season or early on in the season that I wanted to see our young guys on the court more because I want to see what we're going to look like going forward. They haven't played that many NBA games, and the level that they're playing at, they have so much potential. And the fact that, we still have a shot there to make the playoffs if we come out of the gate strong.
You can't predict free agency, you can't predict trades or any of those kind of things, but as you look to the future of San Antonio, how do LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan fit into the big picture of where this team wants to go?
That's a great question. It depends on the direction the team wants to take. DeMar obviously is a free agent. No one knows what he's going to do. If he decides to leave, then I think that you're most likely looking at, if you can't get a high-quality veteran to fill that spot, you're trying to fill that spot with draft picks, and you're not going to be able to make the playoffs with a roster that is that young. And so you probably start trying to rebuild as quickly as possible.
Okay, I feel like this question is reserved for times when people want to force coaches out. I don't think there's anybody in the world in San Antonio that wants to force Coach Popovich out. How much longer do you think he wants to coach?
There were several times I was with him this year, and I kind of in a roundabout way asked him that kind of thing, and he's like, I feel the fire, I feel the juice. He's still excited to go out there and coach these young guys. He's still excited to go out there and teach. For a guy like him, he's ultra competitive. I still believe that he's going to be around for a while.
LaMarcus Aldridge is not in the bubble because of surgery on his shoulder, but 7 other former Longhorns are. Jared Allen, teammates DJ Augustine and Mo Bamba, Jackson Hayes, Corey Joseph, PJ Tucker, and Miles Turner. The Mavs and Rockets resume their seasons tomorrow night against each other, both with deep playoff runs in sight. That's sports from the Blue Turf. Bob Ballou, CBS Austin Sports. CBS Austin News at 10 is back after this.
Coming up tomorrow on CBS Austin This Morning, it's not who you're with, but the dynamic you have with them will finally solve the love equation for you. Wake up ATX and join us bright and early, starting at 4:30.
Thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. Have a great night. Colbert's up next.